Okay, episode 11. Only one more and we can stop dealing with this stupid show. So the vast majority of this episode is split between the main girls, with Weiss and Blake being in the same scene more or less the whole time, and then we have John, who is here for about a minute. So continuing where we left off from last time, Weiss and Blake are still fighting and talking to each other, and Blake lays out all of her grievances with humanity, including a bunch of stuff that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like I said before, we know nothing of the history of Remnant aside from some very vague stuff, so we have no idea if Blake is just telling the truth or lying. But since this dialogue kind of forces Weiss to realize something is off, and she points out that she had nothing to do with any of what Blake is saying, I'm gonna go with Blake is just being a whiny bitch thanks to the nightmare. Then we cut over to Yang, who is still distracting the Nicholas statue as it takes out the White Fang. Now, since Yang was able to damage the thing in the last episode, this should be the moment where she decides to fight instead of distracting it. This would build on the character development from before, where she insists she is not a coward, and would also go a long way to establishing Yang as the sort of person to fight something regardless of the odds. Instead, what happens is that some White Fang get taken out, and she gets mad. This causes her semblance to activate, and she breaks the statue. But first, she enters into the statue because she rode her bike up to its face so she could punch it in the face, and Yang enters into one of Weiss's memories. It's Weiss talking to Nicholas, and okay, no, stop, what the fuck. So, having gone to the wiki real quick, it turns out that Nicholas was alive during the early part of Weiss's life, and the Sneaky Dust Company is only a generation old at most and isn't some sort of extremely long-term company that Jacques is ruining. It was established by Nicholas, apparently when he was like a young man or something. But enough about how everything in RWBY feels like it's no older than a toddler. What does Nicholas talk to Weiss about? Well, he talks about how he enjoys serving others and protecting them, and that one day Weiss will do that for others. Yeah, okay. Sure. I would analyze what this means, but I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Also, I guess that's the show's explanation for why Weiss's dream is built the way it is. Anyways, Yang jumps out of the statue as it plummets to the ground. So now we cut over to John, who defeats the Jacques statue from earlier with the help of the mini Weisses and Pyrrha. Yeah, so the mini Weisses make the sword easy to lift, and he uses it to destroy it because his sword can one-tap anything? Sure, okay. So remember how I said if they didn't do anything with the mini Weisses and Pyrrha, there would be no point to their existence? Well, I stand by that. This makes no sense, since Weiss said in a previous episode that everything was done on purpose. So Jean was supposed to free the mini Weisses, but that was bad. And then he was supposed to defeat the statue, but my question is, why? What does it accomplish? It has no bearing on the larger plot, just like the scenes with Yang in this episode. I think the reason why they did this was to give Jean something to do, because they don't know what else to do with him at this point. But enough of that, let's get over to Ruby. So she's fighting the nightmare and can't seem to beat it. So she suddenly is like, okay, this isn't the real nightmare. The real one is around here somewhere. How did she come to this conclusion? Well, stop asking questions and enjoy the keys jingling in your face and give us your money. Ruby then remembers the conversation she had with Weiss from episode 9 and the line about the nightmare being in the shadow of the person it's facing. So she slashes some vines away, and the light from the dress the nightmare is holding on to causes Ruby to cast a shadow, and she shoots at her shadow until she hits the nightmare in it, killing it. So how did Ruby know the light from the dress would cause the nightmare to be seen? Wait, actually, the only light in the room is from the dress, so why the fuck does she need to clear away vines first? Wait, that was the reason Ruby's gun had to be changed, was to hit the nightmare? She could have shot it with her normal gun. There was no need to alter it like that. You know what? Screw it. Let's keep going. So the nightmare grabs her, and she defeats it by using the power of her silver eyes. Okay, show, stop. First, how did the nightmare grab her? The real nightmare is dead. Why would it be able to do anything after that? It should have left Weiss's body for Xion to catch and contain it. And second, why the fuck are you bringing the Silver Eyes into the show at this point? For those of you who are not familiar with RWBY, let me explain a little bit. Some people in RWBY have silver eyes. There is something about them that makes them exceptionally good at taking down Grimm. As we learn later, they can Deus Ex kill all the Grimm that they are looking at by being under enough threat or by believing in the power of friendship. This was not introduced until the end of season 3 of the original show, and now it's here in what I can only assume is an interlude between season 1 and 2. Oh, and Yeah, it's a Deus Ex Machina power a lot of people in the community hate, at least how it's been implemented. And now they throw it in to explain how Ruby can 1v1 the Nightmare despite already having defeated it. So, Ruby is in another dream within a dream, or whatever this is, and talks with Weiss about if she is ready to trust Ruby, which means that all the previous conflict between the two is now over, until they backtrack and bring it back next episode. That's a joke, but let's see if I was right. So we cut back to Weiss as Ruby gets teleported into the scene and the two have a happy reunion before reality sets in and they realize they are still in danger. Weiss figures out the gist of what's going on and they begin to fight Blake. Now, this should be a tough fight as Blake was able to keep up with Weiss, who had single-handedly been beating up everyone. But no, Yang just punches Blake in the face, and that breaks part of the mask she's wearing, which allows Blake to use her coin to free herself of the Nightmare's influence. At which point, Yang pulls her out of herself, and the four of them kick the crap out of the evil Blake. Ruby then tells them she knows how to beat the Nightmare because Weiss told her how to do it, and Weiss is so confused by this, but everyone goes with Ruby on this. So they repeat how they beat the other Nightmare, but without Ruby using her special eyes. Oh, yeah, and they don't show the Nightmare dying for this time, so this one might still be alive, but the one that got hit with Ruby's protagonist powers is dead. Shion also comments on how they got it done just in time. Yeah, because Shion's aura is completely inconsistent in the entirety of the show. So the girls find John, and they explain everything about what happened to Weiss, and for some reason Weiss is super embarrassed by having been infected by a Grimm. Then everyone wakes up, and the episode ends. Well, that was the most contrived ending to a conflict I have seen in a long time. I mean, seriously, all the dream stuff does is prove that the writers are morons. So no one really grew as a character from the events that happened. Even Weiss doesn't develop as a character because she has no memory of what was going on. Ruby and Weiss have all of their differences solved, and so do Weiss and Blake. We learned nothing new about any of the characters, and we got it all delivered in the worst way possible. And as a tip for writers, never have a character point out a problem in the show itself, because in this episode, Weiss actually asks why she is wearing what she is, proving that not even Weiss would wear that stupid outfit. I don't really know what else to say here, so I'll just end it here. I mean, if I mentioned how repetitive things in this show are, I would be repetitive as hell, despite that being the truth of what happens in the show itself. So once again, I want to say thank you to everyone for watching, and I hope to see you next week for the last episode of Ice Queendom. Like, comment, and subscribe, follow the links, because I am a shill like every other person on this platform, and until then, this has been Veiled Shadow.